left them at home. I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm a bad friend. It's okay.
Okay, number 1. So the first thing I'm going to analyze is the values I don't want for x. Okay, so if I want, I guess I could factor this with a difference of squares. The non-permitted values are 2 and -2. Then, when I look at the degrees on the numerator and the denominator, are they higher somewhere or the same? Higher on the bottom. What does that do to a number if the bottom gets bigger? Makes it smaller and you get closer and closer to 0. So here's what I know. There's going to be vertical asymptotes at 2 and -2. And there's going to be horizontal asymptote at 0. So if I ever said, what's the equation of your asymptotes, it'd be y equals 0. X, if I ever ask you those kinds of questions, this would be the equations of your asymptotes, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do some other coordinates. All right, what kind of x values should we plug in? -3 and -4. Because I'm going to pick a couple on this side and a couple in the middle and a couple on the right. Okay, ready? -3 squared, 9, subtract 4 is 5. 4 squared, -4 squared is 16, minus 4 is 12. 1 squared, -1 squared is 1, minus 4 is -3. This bottom would be -4. Now, do you get this? Having a 1 squared and a -1 squared in there are going to give me the same answer. Does that make sense to you? Oops. So I'm just looking above, because when I put the 3 in, it's going to have the same as the -3. Okay, so these are my new coordinates. For example, this would be -3, 0.8 if I'm going to graph it. Okay, I'm graphing like that. Okay, -3, 0.8. -4, 0.3, because it's like 4/12 is 1/3. Okay, do I get the shape already? I can see it's going to go up and it's going to flatten. Sorry that I'm running out of room. There's an Okay, at -1, this is -1.33. That's what it is. It's -1 Bless you. At 0, what does this divide to? -1 exactly. So 0, -1. And that and on the right side, 3 and 4, can you kind of mirror that side? Because that's what we got. We had a 0.8 and a 0.33. Okay. Oh, I guess I need some kind of scale on my y-axis. So when you draw these, make sure you put a scale somewhere on each axis. Doesn't matter where, just as long as one number is labeled. Okay, second one. What do we think, first of all, about non-permissible values? Allowing x to be, is there anything that we don't want x to be? There's actually none. Okay, why is there no non-permissible values? Because x squared would have to be -2. In order to turn the bottom into 0, this would be -2. Can you ever square anything to be -2? No. So everything works. Tell me about the degrees. Higher, same. Higher on the bottom. So what's your equation of your asymptote? Y equals 0. So that's all I know right now. Okay, I don't really have an x value that I'm gonna plug in specifically. So I'm probably going to do the center few points here. Okay, plugging these numbers in. Okay, ready? -2 squared is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So 6 over 6 is 1. Guess what? That's going to be the same. It's 2 squared and -2 squared. That was the same math. Okay, 1. So 1 squared is 1. 1 plus 2 makes the bottom 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. If x was 0, then you would have 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Okay, so this needs to flatten. Remember what the purpose of the asymptote was? Is that you get closer, 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 closer to it. I feel like on your homework a few times I saw this one having a domain and range question. So what is the domain? I'm going how far left, how far right. So negative infinity to infinity. And the range, what's the lowest height you go? 0 with a round bracket to the highest height of 3 with a square bracket. Okay. Last one. Let's talk about our non-permissible values. Which x value is not good here? I don't like the number 1. Okay, so that will be a vertical asymptote. Let's talk about our degrees. Higher or same? Same. What do we do when they're the same? No. The whole is when, like, you would have something like this, where you'd have two factors making a whole. That would be different. So the same, so what do? We divide the coefficients. Remember that? There's a 4x and a 1x. So we divide, so our asymptote is y equals 4. Okay, that's my horizontal asymptote. So that's what I know. Okay, when I go to plug in some x numbers, what are some good numbers to pick? How do you know where to start? What do you want to plug in? Probably 2 and 3 to be on that side. And probably 0 and -1 to be on that side. Okay, so I did 2 on that and 2 on that. Okay, ready? I'm going to plug in a 2. So 4 times 2 makes 8. 2 minus 1 makes 1. So 8 divided by 1 is 8. I'm going to plug in a 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. 3 minus 1 is 2. So that's 6. I'm going to plug in a 0. 4 times 0 is 0. I don't care what I'm dividing by. 0 divided by anything. I'm going to plug in a -1. So 4 times -1 is -4. -1 minus 1 is -2, which makes 2. Okay, so I'm plotting those 4 points. Okay, I can see the shape now about how it's going to form around my asymptotes. I can see that. Okay. Determine the equations of the asymptotes, the coordinates of the hole, the domain, the range, anything that I can. So the first thing I'm going to do is factor the bottom. Okay, so multiplies to 2. 2 times 1, negative, negative. So when I look at that, I say, what are the non-permitted values? X equals 2 and x equals 1. Those are non-permitted. Okay, something happens though. There's a cancel. So here's what happens. There's a vertical asymptote. The equation is x equals 1. There is a hole at 2, comma, because it said give me the coordinate. Okay, so I got to plug 2 in. So I've already canceled this. So the top is just 3, and I've canceled this. So the bottom is just x minus 1. Okay, so plug 2 in. So what happens to the math when you plug in 2? 3 over 2 minus 1. So 3 over 1 makes 3. So that's the whole. And let's talk about...
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, do you have those?
Let's talk about our degrees. Higher, same, what is going on?
Higher.
Higher on the bottom. So that means what? It means that you're going to approach 0, right? So there's our info. Okay, so domain. Let's talk about domain. You can do this. You can go from negative infinity up to, what's the first x value I need to miss? Where am I going to skip over? What x value first? 1. And then I can go again. I get to keep going from 1 up to 2. And then I have to skip it. And then I can go from 2 to infinity. You could have also written that in this kind of way. X can be any real number except for 1 or 2. You can write it like that if you want. I don't care. And the range. So negative infinity, to which height do I go to where I have to skip over that height? 0. And then I can continue 0 again. And I'm going to get to what? And then I have to miss it. 3. Because I'm skipping over this y value and this y value. These are the 2 y values that I have to miss. So then 3 to infinity. Okay, number 3. Determine the equation. We have a radical. So do you know what radicals normally look like? Okay, that's normal. Ours has a domain bigger or equal to -2. So that means I'm going which direction, right or left?
Right.
To the right. And this has y, so is this going up or down? Down. So I'm going like that. So this is what I know. It starts there and it goes in that kind of direction. Okay, so we're going to make an equation here. I'm just going to leave room for an A and a B because I don't know yet. We'll analyze it after. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a space for an A or a B in case I need it. X, what do I write in there to make it move to a -2? +2. Yep. Opposite. And how do I make it go to this 3? +3. Because this is a C, opposite, and a D. Good? Now, there has been, from here to this shape, there has been a reflection. Which is it? An A or a B? It's an A because it changed from positive y to negative y's, right? So how do you change a y? That is your A. So I need a -1 in that spot. Okay? If your B is negative, you better put brackets on this. Okay? Otherwise I don't need brackets now, but okay, a rational function. So now y equals rational. So now we're doing some kind of fraction. We have a vertical asymptote at 3. So I need what? I need a non-permissible value at 3. So x minus 3 has to be on the bottom of this equation. And I have a hole at -1. So x plus 1, but that means if there's a hole, that creates the hole. That's it for this question, but what if I asked you something different? What if I said you need to have a horizontal asymptote at 5? What would you do to change this equation? So what if I added that into the last part of that question? You need a 5 on the top. And what else do you need though? You need some other kind of x multiplier. You could do just an x. You could do some other x plus 4 bracket. You can add another factor, but you have to make it so that they're both the same degree. So now I have an 5x squared and a 1x squared. So that will work. You could have even put like a 10 and a 2 in the fronts, as long as those numbers are dividing to 5. Okay, graphing a radical. Okay, what do I have for C's and D's? I have that. That is a down 4. Okay. That's it for the starter, down 4. And the over-up pattern, 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3. In other words, that's an X and that's a Y, because an over is an X. What do we do with A's and B's? What are we going to do with an A and a B? So B, we're going to have to divide X. And A, we're going to have to times Y. Okay, everyone's okay with that? X gets divided by B, right? And A gets times by Y. Remember that from our other unit? Okay, so I'm going to cross these off and change the values to negative. And this becomes 2, 4, 6. Okay, so 0, negative 4. So I'm going to go left 1, up 2. I'm going to go left 4, up 4. I probably would have been okay if you didn't go that far, but I think I would have expected those 3 points. But okay, and then on this question I have asked you to state the domain and the range. By the way, I would have lost points here so far because I didn't put a tick mark that says 1 and 1. Okay, domain, how far left to right? So negative infinity up to the 0. Range, what's the lowest to highest? So negative 4 to infinity. Okay, determine the equation. Okay, so we have that point, right? Negative 4 comma negative 3. Can you fill in the C and D using that? Can you fill in the C part and the D part? Okay, left 4, down 3. Okay, let's do an over-up chart. So 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3. That's how we should do it. And let's figure out what we actually did here. Okay, so I found those 2 points. So this was right 2, down 1. So we went right 2, down 1. And then this was right 4, down 2. Okay. Can you figure this out? What did I divide by? That's my b. Whatever I did, I divided by to get that. And what did I times by to get that? Okay, maybe let's do the a first because it's easier. What did you times this by? -1. So I'm going to put a negative into the a spot. Okay, do we remember this? What did you divide by that turns it into a 2? Yes, but did you use your calculator? Do you remember that? Dividing by a half does what? Times is by 2. And there you go. If I divide by half, it multiplies my x values. Right? Remember that from last unit? Okay. Given this graph, then we are going to graph the radical of it. So what do we know? The square root of a negative, what about it? Doesn't exist. So that part of the graph won't exist. Let's talk about what's invariant. What can you square root and it won't change? 1 or 0. So a height of 0 and a height of 1. Where y equals... Okay, what do you know in this zone? When your number is smaller than 1 and then you square root it, it actually gets bigger. And then, can I find a point? For instance here, 3, 4 is going to move to 3, square root 4, which is there. And since my graph stops, I better just stop. If my graph had an arrow, if this one had an arrow, I would have an arrow. Okay, and we also know what radical shapes look like, right? They kind of seem to have this general shape to them. So that's also a thing. All right, number 7. Solve this equation by algebra. All right, here we go. I'm going to -1. I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to square. So the square root would just cancel. And then -3, so the x-intercept should be at -2. Okay, now I'm going to graph. So when I graph, it all has to be on one side. So I can't graph that. So I'm going to move that. So when you graph, it would have to be an equation with everything on one side. Okay, so where should I start? Look at the C and the D. I'm going to start left 3, down 2. Left 3, down 2. And I'm going to do 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3 as the pattern. But do what? Because there's a 2 in the A position. So I'm going to times the Y by 2 because that's an A value. Okay, now I'm ready to do that. So 1 over 2 up. 4 over 4 up. And where did it hit the x-axis on us? That's good. So on your test, hopefully you can understand if something happened wrong, because then your answers, if they're not matching, something went wrong. Okay, that matches. All right, one more page, right? Explain when a rational function has a vertical asymptote and how you can determine when a point of continuity exists. Okay, so this would be something that creates a non-permissible value at x equals 4. So that would be an example of a vertical asymptote. Okay, and then if you had this where there's also a non-permissible value at 4, but if the factor would cancel, then now it's a whole. Okay, so that's how you analyze the non-permissible values. Then, how do you analyze the horizontal stuff? Okay, so if it is a higher degree on the top, then there's just nothing. If there is a higher degree on the bottom, then y equals 0. And the other rule, if they're the same degree, so x squareds both, Then you divide the coefficients. So 1 divided by 1 would be y equals 1. Or whatever your numbers in the front are be, right? It could be a 10 and a 2 or whatever. Okay, last question. I feel like I'm trying to be a little bit tricky on this question. There's something wrong with it. I tried to trick you before we started. Anybody see the problem where I'm tricking you?
There's no D. I mean, there's no C right now. Everything's there.
But it's not factored. Okay, so y equals negative 1/2 factored out. So if I take the half out, that's x. All right, what's your math skills here? It's not 2. It's 8. Times that. What do you get? 1/2 x plus 4. Right? You're dividing a half. So what's 4 divided by a half? 8. Okay, ready? We're going to start in which location? Which point is my starter point? Left 8, up 2. So over there is your starter. 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3. Okay, you know what you're doing? You're dividing by a half. That's a B. And you're timesing by -1. Because that's an A. All right, how are we going to do this dividing by half again? What's the same thing? Divide by half is the same as what else? Timesing by 2. 2, 8, 18. Okay, I'm going to do right 2 down 1. Right 2 down 1. I'm going to go right 8 down 2. When I do those, everyone is resetting to the starter point, right? When you do that? Did you happen to go through the origin there? And then the domain and range again. So this one, the domain is from the left, -8 to infinity. And the range, what's the lowest? So -infinity is the lowest up to a 2.